The silence in the CEO's office is suffocating. It is 4 a.m. The city sleeps, but inside the air crackles with sadistic anticipation. Mr. Hoan sits behind the desk, spinning James's expensive pen. He looks relaxed, energized by the hunt. James stands by the window, back to his father, staring at his reflection in the dark glass. He looks like a standing corpse. His heart hammers a frantic rhythm of terror against his ribs. Did they hurt her? Did she lose the baby? Did they find Nye? The questions burn like acid. Stop pacing, James, Hoan says lazily. You're making me dizzy. Try to look like a winner, not someone waiting for a funeral. James turns, adjusting his cuffs over numb wrists. I just want this over with, he says, voice dead and flat. I want my money back, and I want her gone. Patience, Hoan chuckles. The retrieval is the fun part. The scarred man is thorough. He said she put up a fight. Brave little thing. Stupid, but brave. James grips the windowsill until his knuckles turn white. He imagines the metal pipe. He imagines Diep falling in the mud. He fights the urge to vomit. The elevator ding echoes. Heavy boots thud on marble. The office doors burst open. James stops breathing. 2 massive bodyguards drag a figure in, dumping her onto the Persian rug like garbage. It is Diep. She is barely recognizable. Her clothes are torn, caked in thick mud. Her hair is a matted mess hiding her face. She is motionless. The scarred man follows, wiping mud from his leather jacket. He grins, tossing Diep's small knife onto the desk. Delivery for Mr. Hoan, he announces. She's a feisty one. Tried to run her mouth. Had to calm her down. James stares at the unmoving form. Is she breathing? Please, God. He takes an involuntary step forward. Hoan tuts, wagging a finger. Stay back. Let's see what we have. Hoan walks around the desk. He nudges Diep's shoulder with his polished shoe. Wake up, sleeping beauty. Time to face the music. Diep moans, a low, guttural sound of pure pain. She tries to push herself up, but her arms collapse. She coughs dryly. Slowly, painfully, she lifts her head. Her face is filthy, scratched by branches. Her eyes, swollen and dazed, struggle to focus under the harsh lights. She looks around wildly until her gaze lands on James. Recognition hits her like a blow. Confusion vanishes, replaced by a hatred so pure it burns the air. You, she croaks, voice raw. You, monster. James feels his soul wither. He has to play the part. He cannot let Hoan see weakness. He forces a sneer, standing over her with practiced arrogance. Look at you, James says coldly. From a thief in a mansion to a rat in the mud. This is what happens when you cross me, Diep. Diep spits at his feet, a weak gesture full of defiance. Where is my daughter, she demands. Where is Nye? If you touched her… The kid got away, the scarred man interrupts, annoyed. Slippery little thing, crawled into a drain pipe. We couldn't fit. By the time we dug it out, she was gone. Probably eaten by stray dogs. A wail rips from Diep's throat, a sound of absolute maternal agony. She tries to lunge at the scarred man, but her body fails. She collapses, sobbing uncontrollably. James feels a wave of relief so strong it nearly knocks him down. Nye is safe, but he must show anger. You lost the leverage? James snaps at the scarred man. Incompetent fools! Doesn't matter, Hoan interrupts smoothly, stepping between them. He looks down at Diep, bored by her grief. We have the mother. The child will surface. And now business. Hoan crouches inches from Diep's face. The necklace, my dear, the real one. And the company files. Where are they? Diep looks at him through tears. I don't have them, she sobs. I never did. James framed me. You know he did. Hoan laughs, patting her cheek. Of course he did. He's my son. But you escaped with help. You had money. Who gave it to you? Where is it hidden? I won't tell you anything, Diep hisses. Kill me. I won't kill you. Hoan smiles, standing. Not yet. James will handle this. He turns to his son, eyes hard. She's yours, James. Finish what you started. Break her until she talks. Show me you have the stomach for the real work. James freezes. The test. He has to torture the woman he loves to prove loyalty to the man he hates. James, Hoan warns. Are you hesitating? James swallows. He looks at Diep shivering on the floor. He steels himself. He grabs her arm, hauling her up. She cries out, legs buckling. He shoves her into a chair. Tell him what he wants, James growls, leaning close so only she hears his desperate whisper hidden under the threat. Tell him anything. Lie. Just give him something so he stops. Diep stares at him. She sees panic in his eyes, but she is too consumed by pain to care. Go to hell, James, she says loudly. Suddenly, a spasm of agony rips through her stomach. Sharper, deeper than before. The stress, the physical trauma. It is too much. Her hands fly to her belly, clutching it protectively. She doubles over, gasping, face turning gray. The room spins. She feels a terrifying shift inside. The baby. Hoan, walking back to his desk, stops. He turns slowly. His eagle eyes zero in on Diep's hands clutching her midsection. He watches her labored breathing, the way she curls around her stomach. A suspicion forms, a dark realization. Hoan walks back slowly, pushing James aside. He stands in front of Diep, staring at her protecting hands. Well, well, Hoan whispers, voice dangerously soft. What do we have here? A stomach ache? Or are you hiding something else in there, my dear? He looks at James, eyes narrowing with accusation. James, is there something you forgot to mention about your little pet? James, is there something you forgot to mention? Mr. Hoan's question hangs in the air like toxic smoke. James feels his heart slam against his ribs. He looks at his father, then at Diep curling around her stomach. He knows Hoan. If Hoan confirms there is a baby, an heir, in the womb of a woman he despises, he will kill it instantly. He will stomp on her until there is nothing left. She hasn't eaten in 2 days, James lies, his voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his veins. And your gorilla probably kicked her in the gut. Look at her. She's retching. Hoan doesn't blink. He stares at Diep with the cold curiosity of a scientist dissecting a frog. Is that so? Hoan murmurs. Or maybe she is protecting a little bastard, a souvenir from the slums? Diep looks up, terror piercing her pain. She sees the murderous glint in Hoan's eyes. Instinctively, she tries to sit up, masking her stomach. I'm sick, she gasps, playing along without realizing it. I think he broke my ribs. Hoan smiles. Let's make sure, shall we? He snaps his fingers at the scarred man. Check her. The scarred man steps forward, cracking his knuckles. He aims a heavy boot directly at Diep's midsection. No! James roars. Before the boot connects, James draws his gun. In one fluid motion, he pistol whips the scarred man across the face. Metal hits bone with a sickening crack. The scarred man stumbles back, blood gushing from his nose. James spins, leveling the gun at the man's head. She is mine! James bellows, face twisted in possessive rage. He acts like a madman guarding property. I paid 2 billion dong for this retrieval. She is my asset. You damage her, she dies before she talks, and my money is gone. Nobody touches her but me. The room goes deathly silent. The scarred man holds his broken nose, looking at Hoan. Hoan stares at his son. He looks at the gun, then at the wild, greedy fire in James's eyes. For a second, James thinks he is dead. Then Hoan claps. Slow, rhythmic applause. Excellent! Hoan leans back. Possessive, violent, greedy. That is the Hoan bloodline I was looking for. He waves at the scarred man. Stand down. The boy is right. Damaged goods don't talk. James keeps the gun raised, chest heaving. He glances at Diep. She stares at him, utterly confused. She doesn't know if he saved her or claimed her for torture. Suddenly, Diep's eyes roll back. The pain and adrenaline crash are too much. She collapses, hitting the floor with a thud. A small, dark stain spreads on her trousers. "She's crashing," James says, panic rising. "This isn't acting. If she dies, we lose the necklace. We lose the codes." Hoan looks at the unconscious woman with disgust. "Weak," he spits. "Fine. Take her to the private clinic downstairs. Patch her up, but keep her tied. And James?" James stops, scooping Diep's limp body. He looks at his father. "Don't get soft," Hoan warns. "Get her awake. Get the information. Then dispose of the trash. I want her gone by tomorrow." "Understood," James says coldly. "I'll make her wish she died in the woods." James carries Diep out. He walks past the bodyguards, face like stone. But the moment the elevator doors close, masking them from Hoan, James crumbles. He slides down the wall, cradling Diep on the floor. "Diep," he whispers, shaking her. "Diep, wake up, please." She doesn't move, skin clammy. The stain grows. James hits the emergency stop. The elevator halts. He needs a moment without eyes watching. He places his hand on her stomach. He feels for the baby. He doesn't know what he's looking for, but he prays. "Hold on," he whispers, tears landing on her dirty face. "I'm sorry, I had to say those things." He texts Vance. "Clinic is compromised. Hoan has guards. Prepare extraction. We leave tonight, no matter what." He restarts the elevator. He puts the monster mask back on. He carries her out, shouting for doctors, acting the impatient billionaire. 2 hours later, the clinic room. Diep wakes to the smell of antiseptic, hands cuffed to bed rails. IV drip in her arm. She feels heavy, drugged. "Easy," a voice says from the shadows. James sits in the corner, exhausted, tie undone, sleeves rolled up. He watches her with shivering intensity. "My baby," Diep whispers, voice cracked. Did you kill it?" James stands. He checks the door window, ensuring the guard is distracted, then leans close to her bed. "The baby is alive," he whispers. Diep sobs, head falling back. "Alive." "But," James continues, voice hard, to everyone outside, "you lost it. Understand me, Diep?" Diep looks at him, confusion clouding her eyes. "My father suspects," James explains rapidly. "If he knows you are pregnant, he will cut you open. I told the doctor to falsify the report. The official record says you had a miscarriage due to trauma." He grabs her chin, forcing eye contact. "You have to play this part. You have to mourn, cry, make them believe the baby is gone. It is the only way I can get you out." Diep searches his eyes for the lie. She sees only a terrified man. "Why?" she asks, trembling. "Why are you doing this?" "You put the bounty on me." "To control the damage," James hisses. "Vance lost you. Hoan's men found you. If I hadn't claimed you in that office, the scarred man would have beaten you to death." "You pistol whipped him," Diep recalls. "You said I was your asset." "I said what I had to." James runs a hand through his hair. "I am walking on a razor's edge, Diep. I am lying to everyone to keep you breathing. And you keep running. Because you act like a villain," Diep shouts, wincing. "I am the villain." James slams the bed rail. "In this story, Diep, I have to be. Because the hero gets killed in Act 1. I need to be alive to ensure you survive." He pulls out a key. He unlocks one cuff. Diep rubs her bruised wrist, looking at him. "Tonight," James whispers. 3 a.m., shift change. Vance cuts the power for 2 minutes. The back door will be open. A car is waiting. "You're not coming?" Diep asks. James smiles sadly. "No. If I leave, Hoan hunts us forever. I have to stay. I have to be the heir. I have to destroy him from the inside so he never hurts you again." He relocks the cuff loosely. "When lights go out, Run. Don't look back. James turns to leave. James, Diep calls. He stops. Is it true? She asks softly. About the crib? Mrs. Hoan said. James stiffens. It doesn't matter anymore, he says quietly. Run, Diep. Save our child. He walks out. Diep lies in the dark, tears streaming. She touches her stomach. The baby is there. For the first time, she realizes the monster guarding her door is the only angel she has left. Outside, James leans against the wall. 10 p.m., 5 hours to keep up the charade. Suddenly, his phone rings. Mr. Hoan. Come up to the penthouse, son. Hoan's voice is cheerful. We have a guest. Someone who says she knows you. Says she can help us make Diep talk. James frowns. Who? Her name is Sophia, Hoan says. And she claims to be your fiancé. James's blood turns to ice. Sophia, the woman from the past. The one person who knows his secrets better than anyone. If she is here, the plan is dead.
James bị ép phải bẻ gãy Diệp ngay trước mặt Mr. Hoan. Khi nhóm thợ săn kéo Diệp đầy bùn đất vào phòng CEO, Hoan biến mọi thứ thành một buổi hành trình tinh thần. Ép James chứng minh lòng trung thành bằng cách tra hỏi và làm nhục người phụ nữ anh yêu. Diệp gào lên vì mất nhi, rồi đau quặn, khiến Hoan nghi ngờ cô đang che giấu một bí mật trong bụng. Khi ông định đá thẳng vào bụng Diệp, James buộc phải diễn vai kẻ chiếm hữu tàn độc. Rút súng đánh gãy mũi hắn và gào lên, cô ta là tài sản của tôi, để ngăn cú đá có thể giết đứa bé. Hoan tin con trai đã lộ máu, cho Diệp xuống phòng khám riêng. Ở đó James bí mật dựng hồ sơ giả. Khi Diệp lần đầu hiểu con quỷ đang che chắn mình, Hoan gọi James lên penthouse. Có một vị khách tên Sophia tự nhận là hôn thê của James xuất hiện, đe dọa thổi bay toàn bộ kế hoạch.